Hello, friends, fans, and excuse me, friends, fans, and dairy products of all ages. This is cheezeofages, screwing up in the first few moments, first 10 seconds in fact, of a new video dedicated to the D&D next September playtest packet, which the previous video I took down was not an accurate portrayal of my honest opinions, because I was riled up from trying to shoot the video before and talking about something that really bugged me. So it kind of got compounded into other factors and made me sound more upset about things than I actually was. A few corrections. I said previously that D&D Next is virtually identical to 3.5, and it's not really. It's you'll be doing the same things in very similar ways, to the extent of where it's an addition shift. But there's virtually very little difference in the tasks you'll be doing, but that's acceptable because it's an addition change, not a new game. Well, I would like some actual new options. And variations of the formula like we got from 3.5 to 4th edition. You could have multiple different types of the classes to a degree. A limited degree, mind you, but a degree. There's not really a lot of difference between how the two of the classes operate. The subclasses, while they give a good, nice array of customization options, it's very similar-ish, and it's not really different enough to entice me to play the game as opposed to like Pathfinder or something, other than the fact that it's more balanced. And I kind of actually it's the same thing that like Pathfinder suffers from in regards to 3.5. There's not as many utilitarian options and like core rules in Pathfinder. There's not nearly as many utilitarian tools for the mages. Like, not really offensive stuff or hijinkery stuff, but there's like the cool little trinket stuffs that they can do is like put at a higher level. So oftentimes, or isn't there. You know, it's not really glaring, but it is more glaring in Next, because you can't really have those like cool abilities quite as much. I do like that the balance is there, where mages are like more powerful, but not like me, like they are in 3.5. But I miss utilitarian tasks. There needs to be a bit more utility in there for my tastes. Anyway, drinking game. How many times does he say utility? Anyway, it is an interesting system, and it works. There's just not really a lot of incentive to play it before seeing the modules and plug-in options. There needs to be more stuff. That's all I'm saying. And I am still mildly upset about how the editing and the playtest is crap. I've been in a lot of RPG playtests, and this is like the worst editing I've seen. It's like bare bones, oftentimes has been sloppy. I mean, I get that the rules aren't set in stone, but you could at least put them on paper where we can understand them, and there's no confusion. Put it concisely down. Have all of the rules there. Have all of the text there that's supposed to be there to explain things. There's still not only a bare bones amount of text explaining that the chart for armor is including the math for you. Somebody that's a noob could relatively easily think that armor bonuses are 10 higher than they should be. But I've gone into that in a previous video, and I won't touch that again. My main issue with the packet is that what they did to make the skillful classes, Rogue and Bard, more skillful than the other classes. And let's go into a little bit of a breakdown of how the skill system works for those people that didn't see the previous video or don't know. Everything is set to proficiencies. Your skills, you're proficient in them. Your weapons, you're proficient with them. Your saves, you're proficient with those. And all things you're proficient with operate out of the same proficiency bonus for your class, so you're equally skilled in all things you're skilled in. While I don't like that, I'll appreciate a plugin to make theirs differing levels of proficiency, depending on, what you have. But yeah, the proficiency bonus starts off at 1, and at 20th is 6, and it scales up slowly like that, which helps fix the problem of having to gouge DCs illogically. which wasn't actually that huge a problem aside from things that were relatively mundane, like locks. I mean, for bluff, it made sense, because it's an approach check, and you're usually going to be lying to people that are on your tier, so the AC is naturally going to get higher. But for like mundane things like busting open doors or picking locks, it was either easy or why is it so hard? And traps made sense to a degree because there's more sophisticated traps being used by more powerful enemies. But yeah, while it wasn't a major problem, this does fix it. However, they completely throw the point of changing it out the window when they give the two classes that will be making the most skill checks that the problem existed in the entire progression immediately. Sure, you don't have to gouge DCs, because you have to make them all impossibly hard right away. It's either something the rogue could breeze through, or it's something that no one but the rogue can do. Because the thing that makes them more skillful is something that enables them to pick 4 skills, which 4 is basically going to be at least a fourth, if not a full third of the skills in the game. And that's enough slots to pick all the ones that the DCs were a problem with. And then with those 4 skills, you get a +5 bonus to them. Now, you'll remember, because I said it just a few moments ago, that you start off with a +1 and you end with a +6. So that +5 is effectively giving the rogue and later the bard, because he gets this at level 3, the entire skill progression right off the bat. Now, certain NPCs, very few in the bestiary, have this as well for 1 skill. So my previous example of like the level 1 rogue is going to be better than the town healer isn't actually the case, because the experienced town healer would have the +5, so he would be better. But still, you're giving the rogues the entire progression immediately, so anything that's not intrinsically specialized in that skill, no matter how long they've been doing it, it's going to be inferior to them. This is mainly a problem with the other player classes, and especially with the bard's case and knowledge checks, because it becomes glaringly futzy as far as the lore goes. This is an overly mechanical dynamic, as if you look at the percentages, how the DCs work, a hard DC is 20. Which means you can scale the probability of success easily in relation to the probabilities of a d20. It's easy to determine the probabilities based on the ratios presented in the d20 and how much you have to roll to beat the DC. So generally, getting a +5 gives you a 25% increase to your likelihood of success. While on paper this seems okay, because yay, it's mathematically just a 25% increase over somebody else. In that skill, you're 25% more skillful than somebody. That doesn't seem really that bad, but looking at the mechanics and the lore associated with it, you are getting the entire skill progression and then still leveling up, regardless of if it makes sense that you're better at something than the other people. It's more glaring at this point when you look at the bard, because he gets another ability that compounds the issue, and that's bardic knowledge. While by itself, the ability to where with knowledge checks you automatically roll a 10. You can't roll any lower than 10. If you roll anything lower than a 10, it's a 10. By itself, that doesn't really make a big deal, because, okay, you rolled 10. If you don't have a high intelligence modifier, you're only going to be getting an 11 to 13. That's really not enough to succeed. If you want to be like the really knowledgeable bardy guy, you got to have a high intelligence, right? And that wouldn't be an issue at all to have a skill bonus increase if the skill bonus wasn't +5. Instead, with the +5, you don't even have to have a modifier to knowledge-related checks at all, and you will automatically succeed at basic knowledge checks, the most common knowledge DC you'll be running into for like recalling like basic statistics, like, oh, that is a bugbear, it is strong, it has these somewhat characteristics, it tends to act like this, will be yielded by a 15. You won't have like detailed information, but you will be able to automatically get an amount of reasonably detailed information, making the, like, let's say knowledge nature, and you're doing this to an animal. You've got that knowledge of information at the animal. Comparing a 3rd level bard with no ability modifier to it, just going on proficiency bonus of +2, well, not +2, let me double check this here, because I actually, it slips my mind exactly when the proficiency bonus scales up. Okay, so yes, it is usually going to be +2 to that, since generally a lot of people get the same proficiency increase. Yeah, everybody's going to be at level 2. At level 3 is going to get a +2 to the bonus. So, okay, no ability score modifier to the bard's bonus at all. He's just getting the 2 proficiency bonus and the +5 from the thing. He's getting a 17. Now let's look at the druid, whose entire thing is knowing about nature. He's a druid. And let's say he's got a really good ability score towards knowledge checks, because he wanted to be a knowledgeable sagey guy. So he put his picked a race that had an intelligence bonus. He picked He put his highest roll, an 18, in there, and he managed to get a freaking 20 to it, so he has a +5 to it. So he's got the same bonus, 5 and 2. They're equally good. The bard because he's a bard, and the druid because he's a druid. Oh wait, no, he's actually not as good because he can roll below 10. So, the druid, whose entire thing is being knowledgeable about nature, is only going to be as good as the bard is without any effort 50% of the time. And if you're only equally as good at something as somebody half the time, you're only half as good. So, this ability, requiring no effort or special building at all, immediately makes somebody that builds to it and whose class is entirely focused around it half as good as them. What sense does that make? What sense does that make? And let's assume it's a bard that was built to knowledge. He's much better, because let's say he built to be intelligence focused and has the 20 to intelligence. Now he can automatically succeed at 20s, which is difficult, which is the hard DC, and the DC that will be hard for the rest of the game, because the DCs don't change. He's going to automatically succeed a hard DC immediately without needing to roll a thing, vastly causing him to vastly outpace by a huge margin the druid whose entire gimmick is knowing stuff about nature and who is specifically built to be knowledgeable. He will vastly outpace them. Hugely. There's nothing the druid can do to be as good as the bard. That just doesn't sit well with me. If anything, the bard should only be a little bit better, if not the same. If the druid's going to be building itself exclusively to be knowledgeable about the focus of its class, the bard should only be as good, and that's only if he's built to knowledge. Because the bard's focus is bardic knowledge, he can get away with being their equivalent, but mathematically he's far superior, even without putting any effort into building to knowledge. And the mathematical problems extend not even considering the bardic knowledge ability, because we're talking about probabilities here. Let's just ignore automatic success on hard knowledge checks. And let's talk about like DCs, the base DCs here. A moderate DC, which is the DC you're going to encounter the most frequently, is 15. Which means 50% of the time the rogue is going to be able to succeed on a task even if he doesn't have any ability modifier to it. 50% of the time. Not all that bad. But then the hard DC, which is pretty much the far end of the spectrum that you're going to be going early on. It's described as hard tasks include any effort that is beyond the capabilities of most people without aid or exceptional ability. Even with aptitude and training, a character needs some amount of luck or a lot of specialized training to pull off a hard task. Now, this generally means it's going to be really hard to do this consistently. For the average character, even if they're generally specialized to it, they're only going to be having a +5 normally early on. So they have to roll a 15 or higher to beat this, so it's actually pretty darn difficult. But now, let's put this in the hands of a rogue that's built to the DC at hand. And he's got a +5, and he's got that +5 modifier that everyone else does because of the ability score and the proficiency. And he's getting that +5 extra from the skill bonus. He's going to be able to do it 50% of the time. A hard DC 50% of the time, as opposed to a quarter of the time. It gives him a 25% greater chance of doing something is actually a bigger thing than you might think it is. Because suddenly, a level 1 bard is blowing through what will be a hard task for everybody forever. It's going to be... and when he's at the point in which everybody else can do that to an equal measure because they've got the ability score and the +5 as well from the proficiency bonus, he's doing he's grown too. So he's now doing that with a higher level of trick. He's now doing that 50% chance of success with 25s because he's got that 5 more points. He's 50% of the time doing a very hard check, which everyone else only has a 25% chance of succeeding. And that's described as only especially talented individuals should even try their hand at very hard tasks. So only people that are incredibly skilled need bother trying. And even then, it's not going to be an easy thing to do. Only especially talented individuals need even try their hand at very hard tasks. Yet the rogue has a 50% chance of succeeding at it. And that's actually not 50%. It's actually a little higher than that because he only has to roll a 10 or higher. And that he only has to roll a 10 or higher, which is actually like 52 or so, 54 maybe. A little over 50% chance of success with something that is hard for people that are exceptionally skilled. So, by their own text, they've made the rogue more than exceptionally skilled. A 52, let's say, % chance at succeeding at 4 tasks, and a 50% chance at succeeding at the hard task. At level 1, he can consistently 52% chance, more often than not, succeed at the hard DCs. And for opposed checks, he has a massive advantage over other people that don't have specialized tasks. And considering most monsters don't get proficiency bonuses to their ability score checks, it's going to be where they're massively outscaling them frequently for opposed checks. In fact, the only person in the entire bestiary that I found that has a remote chance of actually detecting the rogue consistently is a level 12 beholder. In the bestiary, it takes a level 12 to consistently, from a mathematical basis, detect a rogue A level 1 rogue that rolls well. The 5 is just too substantial. It's too beefy. They give the entire skill progression right off the bat to those 4 skills, a third of the skills in the game, and then allow them to keep on progressing. What's the point in making the progression slower to make it where you don't have to gouge DCs when the primary reason, when the primary class to make skill checks, the thing that you had to scale up the most, traps, locks, sneaking, the ones that you had to scale up the most, you give the class that does them almost exclusively the ability to be maximum level immediately, right off the bat. So you have to gouge DCs to higher levels immediately to have consistent reliability. It's wonky. It needed to be a smaller bonus that was still substantial, but scale up with level. Like a +2 or something. Don't give an entire freaking 25% boost to their capability and expect people with like a fourth of their modifier to succeed in opposing them. The way it's set up, you either have to gouge the DCs to the point where only the rogue can get by them, or the rogue will get by them almost all the time with locks, traps, sneaking. You've either got to set the DC to accommodate for the rogue, or you've got to make it where the rogue just goes right by it easily. So if the rogue's over there doing something and the party needs to do this, they can't do it without the rogue. Or if the rogue fails, who is going to do it? For some reason the rogue fails, nobody else has a mathematical chance of doing it. Ever. No chance. They're putting all their eggs in one basket. It just upsets the balance of DCs. Now, maybe a +2, to start off at level 1, and then like it scales up to a 5 bonus at some point further along the progression, to where it's smooth. They need to smooth out the progression a little bit of that. I understand that they needed to make it simple, but there needs to be a rules packet to even that out a little bit. If I played any D&D Next games, or DM'd them rather, I would house rule this to scale, where they have a bit more skill, but not a huge amount. Especially in the case of the Bard, which can be better than other classes at knowledge skills without even having to try to be knowledgeable. Even if it's their specialty. I mean, why is the frack is the Bard twice as good as the Druid at nature? Twice as good as the Cleric at religion? Twice as good at Arcana as the Wizard? Why does he know so much more than people that study it exclusively? That doesn't make any freaking sense. There's a limit to having a lot of information that you've accumulated over the years just from random hearsay. I don't think they thought that through. And I again apologize for getting so upset in the previous thing and ranting on. I mean, my system is not going to be perfectly balanced when I get done with it, even though I made it sound like I was, had successfully balanced out everything and done everything and made a perfectly executed system. I was trying to say I was working and putting so much effort towards it, and then they come up with this poorly thought out bullcrap that an 8-year-old could see the problem with. I could a freaking retarded chimpanzee rolled up in paper and being smoked like a cigar could think up a better solution than this, could see how silly this is. And it's not meant as an insult to the person that didn't see the problem. But yeah, it's just mathematically doesn't quite work, and it's overly mechanical while they just paid attention to what does this do on paper with mathematics They clearly didn't pay any attention to what it did to the lore and how the ability interacts with other classes. If they took the minimum amount of effort to even look at it from a lore perspective, they wouldn't have done it. They wouldn't have made the bard better without any effort than people specialized in it. There's a limit to hearsay. It just doesn't make any sense. Anyway, this video's gone on long enough, and hopefully this time I've got my point across a little bit better. The system as a whole works pretty well, and if you're looking for something more balanced on 3.5 and you want to try it out, it's fine right now, and there's rules modules that are coming that I look forward to seeing if they add new stuff, but right now I'm not all that incredibly interested in the game itself in its current state. But I do understand that there's going to be rules packets and stuff to upgrade into it, and they don't have all the subclasses in. I didn't talk about multiclassing. That's something that would require me to actually use it more often to see about the balance, but it seems like it's okay, but could be abused somewhat. I'd have to look over it and actually play test it a bit before I assert opinions on that. So I'll give an opinion on that in a later video. Anyway, this is going to be cheezeofages signing off. The next video I upload will either be a review of something that caught my attention and I needed to get in, which is unlikely, or will be either my 100 subscriber special video or a trailer for it. I haven't decided which. But anyway, my 100 subscriber special will be having a lot of bells and whistles to it and introduce something really interesting for the channel, and also I will be reviewing something that I'm going to keep secret that is very dear to my heart. It's actually the first game I ever DM'd and had an ongoing campaign for that I was participating in. And it's not really something you would expect, generally speaking. And you do not know what I'm going to review, even after me saying that. Can go ahead and try and guess. You'll probably be wrong. Anyway, this is cheezeofages signing off.